Epiphany actually falls on the Sunday, which is good. So we're going to read from Matthew 2. Jesus was born in the town of Bethlehem in Judea during the time when Herod was king. Soon afterwards, some men who studied the stars came from the east to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the baby born to be the King of the Jews? We saw his star when it came up in the east, and we have come to worship him." When Herod heard about this, he was very upset, and so was everyone else in Jerusalem. He called together all the chief priests and the teachers of the law and asked them, "Where will the Messiah be born?" "In the town of Bethlehem in Judea," they answered, "for this is what the prophet wrote. Bethlehem in the land of Judah, you are by no means the least of the leading cities of Judah. For from you will come a leader who will guide my people Israel." So Herod called the visitors from the east to a secret meeting and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem with these instructions: "Go and make a careful search for the child, and when you find him, let me know, so that I too may go and worship him." And so they left, and on their way they saw the same star they had seen in the east. When they saw it, how happy they were! What joy was theirs! It went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. They went into the house, and when they saw the child with his mother Mary, they knelt down and worshipped him. And they brought out their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and presented them to him. Then they returned to their country by another road, since God had warned them in a dream not to go back to Herod. So really coming off the end of the Christmas story, sometime later the three wise men came from the east and gave the baby Jesus gold, frankincense and myrrh. We all know that. But these are mysterious men. They are men probably from Persia, from Iran. They have been originally of Zoroastrian descent or whatever. They are an interesting bunch of people about which we know very little. They come, they have this amazing meeting with the infant King Jesus, and then they return again. You could say lots of things about them. We could learn a lot about them. Who are they? Where do they come from? Are they the first of the Gentiles coming to Jesus? And so on and so forth. Not necessarily what you want to talk about this morning. Possibly this morning, just cut into the quick, if you like. What can we gain? What can we learn from just these men arriving? And there's a lot to be learned. Just this little bit, which we get in the nativity play, where they turn up and give their gifts and then go off again. It really doesn't matter about the camels, all right? You don't want to live your life on. You can't say it's 2019, good news, camels. It doesn't work. Put all that to one side. The thing that struck me most of all looking at this afresh, which is what I don't usually look at, is what it says, and they came into the house. So Jesus had probably, in the next few days, Jesus probably managed to get out of the stable into the inn, all right? As everybody had gone home after the census. And they literally, it says, and they fell down before him. I think it's a really interesting piece of body language, as we would say, or a tell. You know, we talk about body language and tells these days. We get politicians that you can tell how they are from their body language, who goes through the door last, how they stand, how they sit, all this sort of thing. And the same with you, Same with me. I could be, here we are again then. We've had a rest since Christmas. I can sort of feel like this. And I look like this, you see, as you've got the body, it goes with it, doesn't it? So I'm having a look at all of you now to see how you all are this morning. What's he going to say about this? What can he say about the wise men that we do not know? Another year of this sort of thing. And you can tell by the way that people sit and the way people wear. These men do not need to throw themselves literally at the feet of Jesus. This defines the whole thing. They kneel, they prostrate themselves, they fall down. And these are serious people. These are kings, they could have been priests, they could have been academics, they could have been nobility. These people have the money and the disposable assets to do foreign travel. Nobody did foreign travel in those days. They can go to King Herod and demand an audience and cause disarray in the court and then leave in one piece, which you didn't usually do from Herod's court. These are serious people, and yet when they come, the whole thing is defined in my life by the fact that they come into the house and they fall down before him. They don't stand there with their gifts, and Joseph gets up and shuffles forward humbly and receives them on behalf of the child. They fall down and they give their gifts. The whole attitude. It's not that they don't have a problem with their self-image. They're not people who need to worry about who they are. But in falling down, they define the way they relate to this baby. Body language is how we relate to other people, not just how we feel about ourselves. And so when you saw these two so-called world leaders trying to get through the door in the last to show who's in charge sort of thing, how do I relate to this person? Do I patronize them? Do I worry about them? How do I relate? Well, how do these great men relate to this baby Jesus? By falling down. So much is the gap between the two of them. This is a statement, and it's a very strong statement. And for the ancients, they don't just do things intellectually, internally. They do what they do. They bow down. They raise their hands. They bow the knee. They bow their heads. They fall flat on the ground. They do what they are. They do what they feel. They do what they think. They don't have that sort of Greek, well, I do some things and I think other things, you know. You are what you are. You are all joined up. You are sat down this morning, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so this is a great picture. And I wonder about this kneeling down. I wonder about this falling before the Lord. After all, it tells us that we should do this, doesn't it? St. Paul says this. And thus, because of all that Jesus has done, every knee should bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Do we do this? Let me tell you, I do not like this kneeling business at all. All right, I want to reassure you that I don't do this falling down business at all. And you may not as well, but that's a good thing to learn, isn't it? Do you do kneeling down? Do you do prostrate? I don't do that. I do prostate, but I don't do prostrate. All right? But, you know, I don't kneel down a lot. I don't like it. And I'm thinking about why don't I do it? Well, one of the reasons is that I don't have any role models. You see, in a lot of things, we can start off with people and work towards the Lord. But I don't fall down before anybody else on purpose. You know, that might look at my masters at school. Some of them are good guys. But I might have called them sir, but I'm not going to kneel. And you got to university and they thought they were even more important. But it just proves that if you pay people enough and leave them there long enough, they know a lot. But you don't kneel before them. You know, oh, blessed professor. No, I don't do that. So go in the army. Well, you've got to salute various people there. But that's the job. You don't meet many people. You say, oh, blessed general, you know. And I have to say in the church, I would have wished there was some more people I could have looked up to and knelt down to as great people who led the church. I met some holy people, but not a lot of great people. And so I don't have any big models for... so I know what it is to sort of, you know... So I need to do more with God. I've got to start. If you've got it, if you can serve other people, you've got an idea of service by serving other people. So we need to serve the Lord more, but it's a good start. We need to know we need to love people. We've got an idea of loving other people. So to love God, we love Him even more. We were in London last week looking at the latest office blocks being built in the city of London, and looking at these amazing skyscrapers. I think I could never build that, but I do know that when we were in Nottingham, I did lay some concrete foundations and built a summer house, you see. It's a start. I know about building. But at least you built a summer house, so someday you might build an office block. But I've never bowed down and grovelled before anybody. I don't have a start, you see. And so it is only Jesus that it is worth kneeling before, but I haven't had any practice. I think that. Neither of you, on the whole. And I think the ancients, who were always kneeling before their rulers and their people of authority, they were on a head start when they went into the temple and knelt down. They knelt down with everybody else, but not us. But when it comes to kneeling down before Jesus, it also is a problem for me because it touches on my ego. You really can't kneel down and preserve your total ego. I am small and He is great, and it shows. I don't like this ego thing. And so I've always wanted to follow Jesus as a great leader and as a great friend. I remember doing a family service once about this, and I think it was on an overhead projector. You remember those? Hopefully it was the right way up and the right way. You don't know it was. And I did a picture of a big hand coming down from God or from the Lord or whoever, and a small hand lifting up to hold it. I thought it was a great picture of the way that He holds us and leads us. It will be good for this new year to feel that you hold on to the Lord's hand and He leads you into this new year, but we're both standing up. And so in my body language of prayer, I sit down usually and pray. And occasionally I, move towards bowing my head. But I very rarely kneel down and have not been known, apart from in certain situations, to lay down or to actually fall before the Lord. That's my body language. That's the way I am. I want Him to be a great friend. Jesus is Lord, but I'm not kneeling down. Sort of thing. We could do well to practice that, because I raked through my memory and I realised that the only times I'd really knelt down on the floor was when I was in a real state. I remember once back in Nottingham, a real crisis. I went into my office, I knelt on the carpet. Why? Because I'm really serious. And at that point I need Him to be much greater than me. You notice the disciples, on the whole, they don't kneel down, they walk around and argue. But the people who came to Jesus and needed healing or threw themselves before Him, we read. So, perhaps we could try that. Not now, but we could practice that. And you can find those of you who come to communion in a moment and kneel down. That's a very polite way of kneeling down. It's the way it's sort of been domesticated, hasn't it? You've got a mat as well, so your knees. But still, I think it's good. When I was at school in the cathedral, you could kneel down on a kneeler. It was a sense of feel. You should try that. And they threw themselves before Him. I am me, you are you, Lord. And then the gifts come out of that, don't they? Unless we start by giving to the Lord what we're going to give Him from that attitude of being on our knees, then it doesn't work out, because He doesn't really need these gifts, does He? This baby does not need gold, frankincense and myrrh. You've heard that said before. We have a new baby on the way in our family. We are not planning gold, frankincense and myrrh. We are planning teddies and baby clothes and all those things you have for babies. I turn up with a great, you can imagine, there's the baby in the cradle, turn up with a big gold ingot. Plonk. Everybody says, take it out the cot. Stop burning that incense. He's just gone off to sleep and start that smell. Can you imagine turning up and saying, we got a gift for you. We're so pleased we got your baby. It's so good. Our gift is a funeral plan. Myrrh. So it's not appropriate for a baby. But it's not necessary for the King of Kings who has everything and doesn't need anything, you know. But as with so often, the gift is important to the person who's giving it. And we, in our recommitment of ourselves, perhaps today, we can think, am I giving it with this? Will I throw myself before? Will I kneel? And from out of the kneeling, I give him gold. All right, gold. We know that is for kingship. It means that I'm not just kneeling because he is great, because he's a king, but because he is my king. If we were at some sort of reception or some meeting where we came across some great foreign dignitary, you know, some prime minister or some president, you would say, well, president's very good to see you, sort of thing. But we would know that although they were important, they had no authority over us because they ruled a different country. You know. But what they're saying is not, oh, mighty king, but you are our king. They kneel and they cede him sovereignty. There's a lot of things you can get from a king. In those days, you would have got protection. You might have got provision of the food. But you basically got the law. The king spoke and you did what the king said. And so they were, to use a phrase, ceding him sovereignty. They come and say, you are in charge. And as I say, these were great men. That's a challenge to us, isn't it? Would we come this morning and say, Lord, for this new year, I want to cede you sovereignty in my life? When the key thing about sovereignty is obedience. I know there's a bit of guidance as well, but I don't like obedience. Do you? I don't like obedience. I want to sing Jesus is Lord, but I don't want to be obedient on the whole. I want to have a discussion about it. I don't even like being told what to do. I'm not a great racer on a motorway, but say I'm tooling around the M42 at about 60, having a good time, and then it comes into the control area, it says 60. I'm outraged. I was only doing 60 in the first place. But now somebody's telling me to do 60. Tell me what to do. And yet Jesus, if Jesus is Lord, if I cede him sovereignty, he has the last word. He speaks and I obey. Or as actually happens, he speaks and I do not obey. I think that's for the church, it's for us as individuals. We know very often that I know very often I should forgive somebody, but I don't want to do it. I know I should be generous about something, but it costs a bit. I'm not going to do it. It's just common to garden things in this week. I shall be disobedient. It doesn't need great guidance. It doesn't need great inspiration. It doesn't need great spiritual movement. It just needs obedience. And I don't do it. They cede him kingship. You are our Lord. You have authority over us. It's a big move, that, actually, isn't it? From you running everything to him running everything. And they go on with frankincense, incense, as we would say. That's about priesthood. Jesus is a priest, but they are probably priests, like some of these, interesting guys like Melchizedek in the Old Testament. Lots of people drift in and out of the Bible who are priests. The priest of Midian. Who was the priest of Midian? All these sort of people. So they'd have probably been priests as well as Jesus. But Jesus is not a human priest that brings people up to God. He comes from God and lifts them himself. And so he is the great high priest, as it says in Hebrews, isn't it? But priesthood is bringing together, isn't it? The priest brings us to God. Jesus brings us to the Father. And so that's to do with worship. We have come to worship him, they say to Herod. That's what we've come for. We haven't just got some nice things for him. We brought him some stuff. We've come to worship him. And so there's that sense of coming together. And so when they throw himself at his feet, and they give him the incense, there's a sense of worship, but in the centre of worship there's encounter and meeting. And you think, we're on firmer ground here. I'd like to commit myself to intimacy with Jesus in this year. I might not be good at obedience, but I don't mind intimacy. That sounds good. I was chewing this over in the week and I thought, I like limits to my intimacy. I like you all to know a bit about me, but I don't want you to know everything about me. I like to retain a bit of me. There's none of you here who would like everybody else in this church to know everything there is to know about you. Depending on who it is, you will dole out increasingly or decreasingly intimate bits. But there's always a little bit when I think, oh, I'm not knowing that. You know where those conversations are going sometimes? And what do you do? And, you know, oh, how was the weather? And we're fine. And then, how are you feeling? And what do you think about that? And you think, oh, no, I'm not going there. They give him incense. They come, it's saying, our whole selves. Do I want Jesus to know about my bad habits and my bad thoughts? And I don't want to know. I'd love him to know everything about me, but not that. When the family comes at Christmas, old analogy, isn't it? Will you let Jesus into every room in your house? Sort of thing. I don't want them in my office. The children, that is. 2 reasons. One is because I got a lot of rubbish in there, which I've gathered from the rest of the house because they're coming. You know, that's the private bits. You don't want that. Also because I've got the electric railway in there, which is the most precious bit. And I don't want to mucky with that, you see. And it's very similar, isn't it? In your heart, isn't it? Do you want to be intimate with Jesus? Well, no, because I don't want to know about my sin and the rubbish which I've put under the bed because I was coming to worship. But neither do I. There's some really precious stuff in there that I'm hanging on to, you know. I throw down on myself. And the myrrh. Same thing. Now, this is more straightforward. For these great men, these great priests, they're saying we depend entirely on this baby's death. This is very much nothing in my hand I bring, only to thy cross I cling. And we know this. And we know that we say, Lord, I bow down and I trust you entirely for my salvation. It's in your cross that my future lies. You say, well, we're on firm ground here. But the bowing down is an important thing, again. Because that sense of self-giving means, and I'm not bringing anything else either. I'm not bringing any good things I do or any good things I'll achieve in this new year. Only will I depend on Jesus. They cede their salvation to Jesus. Whereas they were men of their knowledge and wisdom and religiosity who would have owned their own salvation. Everybody would have looked to them. But no, they said, no. Would you do that this year? Would you say, Lord, I'm not going to just stand beneath the cross. I'm going to kneel at the base of the cross. I'm not going to just depend on the cross, but I'm going to throw myself at the foot of the cross. And I'm not going to bring any good works or small brownie points or things to be taken into account along with me. That's not easy. So these magi have some real good stuff for us as we start this week. Am I prepared to cede my sovereignty to Jesus? Am I prepared to cede my autonomy to Jesus? Am I prepared to cede my salvation to Jesus? Or would I like to maintain a bit of sovereignty, a bit of autonomy, and help along with the salvation? If I can get the kneeling down bit, then I'm well on the way. As we come to communion, we have this opportunity to kneel. And perhaps when you go home, you might try this. Those of you who have arthritis, don't worry about it terribly, but don't go away with this, I can't kneel down, but I'm going to kneel down on the inside. You kneel down on the outside and you'll find you're in a good position, just like them. It's not surprising, is it, that they went home by a different way. They didn't bother with Herod and they didn't bother with the star. They'd done it. They were made. They went. That's good for us.